Hey, everybody. I'm live. I don't know. Canty, am I lined up? Should I be somewhere? Dun, 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 dun. Good? Am I good here? What about over here? Facebook Live. We're talking about dog training challenges in agility. And today, I don't have LOH with me. Bam, ba-da. I got Canty. Woo, woo. Canty in the house. So I thought, so is it lined up there, Canty? And I should just see if everybody can see us and hear us and know what we're talking about. So we got a thumbs up from LOH there. Okay. While we're waiting for people to get on, first of all, let's have some hearts. For everybody's on here, hearts for the dog training of agility. Something that gets kind of swept under the carpet and a lot of people forget about it. But it's huge. It's everything. It's everything. Even handling is dog training, really. It's a dog learning a new language. So hearts for education. Okay, Canty, come on in here for a second. So yesterday, while we're waiting for people to get on, I said to Canty, we'll talk about the trial we were at yesterday. So Canty runs Momentum's littermate, Wiggins, who's super fast. He's a lot like Swagger at that age. He's got a bigger stride than Swagger, though. He's like powerful. So at the trial, we ran. Do you know how many classes you ran?
I ran 6 classes.
You ran, and I ran 6 as well. And so you can go first. Do you have some key lessons or things that you were pleasantly surprised with, and things that are take-homes? Make sure you don't go to the camera view. Things that you want to work on.
Yes. So I learned that key surprises for me is I thought he's always good with the weavers, that I can trust him. Wrong. I need to be more present to watch him where he is all the time. So the big mistake I made yesterday was not happy. I wasn't watching him in the weavers, but then I'm thinking ahead of the next obstacle, thinking that okay, I don't want him to make a mistake. So because of looking at that obstacle, I kept my eyes off him, and then he left the weavers.
Do you remember that 5-cone game that we played last summer, where you had to only watch the next obstacle from the peripheral? Yeah, that's a good one. So, that's a lesson that everybody learns about weave poles, because when young dogs get into trials, they'll sometimes go 1 to 3, or they might skip a couple poles in the middle, especially with these straight-on approaches that they give us in the novice ring. And here's what happens. They might be perfect at home, and then they learn in the first trial that you aren't paying attention, and then what happened was Canty just went on and finished the course and didn't know that her dog missed the weave poles. Then it happened in the next round, and the same thing happened. So the dog learns, oh, the rules for weaving are different at a trial than at home. So I've got to be really careful and do it perfect at home, but at a trial, woohoo, party! So that's a lesson we don't want them to learn.
Couldn't sleep last night.
Oh, come on. It's fixable. That's the dog training of agility. It's all fixable. Okay, so what were you happy about? What did you say, okay, this is a big improvement?
I'm happy about I think our style line is improving, so I'm happy about that. It's not perfect, but we are getting there.
Right, because you had the first couple of trials was a little bit shaky.
Mm-hmm. I'm also happy that he listened to me a lot in terms of, he actually listened to me a lot, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, his even though you had the ease, the handling was beautiful. Like he followed really nicely, and he collected on his turns.
Yeah, I
good.
Some of them.
Good. Okay, me for Menti. Thrilled with how consistent she's been. You can. Okay, you can go watch there. Sure. Okay. So, Momentum has been in the last 2 trials. Was the CKC trial? Was it last weekend or the weekend before that? Do you remember? I think it might, I don't remember. I think it was last weekend.
2 weekends. You have CKC and then you have BBB.
Okay. So in the last 2 weekends, and if we include the BBB, so 3 trials, she's had 0 off courses. Her only fault, I don't remember at BBB, but her only fault in the last 2 weekends of trialing was she had 1 bar yesterday and 1 bar. So 1 bar in 6 classes yesterday, 1 bar in 4 classes at the CKC trial. So I'm thrilled with that. The things that when I look at my video, and you know what, if you don't video, you should video all your runs. So when I look at my video, I've got great start lines. I just take my start lines for granted, but I can see that she's dropping in her shoulders. And these are, when we get to talking about start lines today, these are things that you need to be aware of. So I'm going to be playing some start line games this week. Also going to be working with her footwork a bit, and for me, always going back to her running contact, but she did self-release on her dog walk in one of our near the end, and so I'll be playing some seesaw games, because I've really put the seesaw on the shelf, because I love her performance. It's brilliant, and there's so many things to train. We can't train them all every day. And there's some with all of our dogs, like there were 4 of Feature's puppies, 4 of the 7 puppies are at this trial, and all 4 of us trained together on Monday nights. So looking at these dogs, oh, you have to go and put that up. That's the antenna for the internet. Just kind of lick it and stick it to the thing. I'm very technical. Lick it and stick it to the thing. So with all 4 of those puppies, I saw a weakness in, and this is something that is really, really common. And we are going to get to today's topic. I just thought I'd share some stuff about the weekend. So if this is a jump and you as the handler's here, it's easy to show some deceleration in your dog to turn nice and tight. You know, it has to be trained as everything, but the weakness that I saw this weekend, and I've seen it and we have been working on it, is if, as the handler, you're out here and you want the dog to do some collection, that they are more likely to come by you and then come in. So we'll be working on that in class tomorrow. All right, so let's have some hearts for Canty. I put her on the spot. Hearts for Canty. I put her on the spot. I said, hey, why don't you come and talk about, you know what, young dogs, we all have problems, and let's just talk about where we are and where we're heading. And it's a journey, right? It's a journey. So we're all good. All right. I'm just good at with you. I want to talk to you first about we're gonna give away 2 gifts today. Okay. So can you pass me those 2? Thank you. Right here. So giving away 2 gifts in today's Facebook Live. Because we're talking about the dog training of agility, and because a lot of the things that I talked about in the last session, when we were talking about seesaw challenges, getting more speed, and some of the things I'm talking about today, a lot of them are in a book that I wrote about one of my dogs, Buzz, called Shaping Success. A lot of the dog training's in here. So we're going to give away let's give this one away first. So Shaping Success it's as relevant today as it was when I wrote it. And all that you have to do to be in the draw is share this Facebook Live. Just hit the share button. It's there somewhere below where I'm talking. Look down there. Do you see it's got a little arrow? Share that on your page. Share it. Just put a little description all about the dog training for agility. And you're going to put this hashtag, dog training for agility. You know what? We all need more dog training for agility. Put that hashtag when you share it, and that's how we're going to track who shared it. And we're just going to randomly pick one of you who shared it. We will contact you to get an address where we can send you your own copy of Shaping Success. Okay, so remind me, partway through, I'm going to tell people how they can win the next gift. So the first one is all about shares. And the next one, this was a tough one for me to pick because I thought, what's something that would be really impactful? Dog training is going to be really impactful, and mindset's going to be really impactful. So I went through my bookshelf of all of my favorite books on mental prep. Do you want Linda's going to have a fit right now. I'm going to take you for a little tour here. Okay, we're going to go into the bowels of my office, and I'm going to show you here. These are all books on mental prep, and the thing is, in today's day and age, we've got Kindle, So a lot of my newer books on mental prep, I don't even have hardcovers. The truth is, when I really, really like them, I buy them in Audible. So I listen to them when I'm walking the dogs. I buy them in hardcover, and I buy them in Kindle. So yeah, people who write books love people like me. So later on, we're going to give away one of the books on mental prep for sport. All right, so recap. Yesterday or Friday, during our session, we talked about getting more speed out of your agility dog, how to handle ring nerves, and seesaw challenges. A lot of good gems that were brought up during that workshop. It wasn't really a workshop, it's a Facebook Live, right? How much can I really help you in 30 minutes? My goal here isn't to change, to fix. I have no pixie dust for you. So if you're here for the pixie dust, there's probably the Masters. You can go watch the golf game. But what I am going to give you, I promise you, I'm going to give you aha moments. I'm going to give you insights into today's topics, and we have 4 of them. Controlling drive for those dogs who are like crazy with drive. I'm going to give you some insights, some actionable things that you can do. Timely cues for getting there, like when you're handling, how do you get into position? Because if you're not in position, the dog doesn't get the information early enough, and it's not pretty. Remembering the course. So Canty actually added, she said, why don't you also talk about recovery? Because maybe we can remember the course, but sometimes, as Canty said, when a boo-boo happens, it's now you forget the rest of the course. So I thought that was really good. And start lines. So we're going to talk about start lines as well. Okay, so we're going to begin with controlling drive. So the first thing I would like to share with you, and I hope you're taking some notes on some of this stuff. Even if you don't have a dog that's out of control, that maybe you have a friend or you have a student, you have somebody in your class and say, hey, I was listening to this chick and here's what she said. So the first thing is, sometimes people feel completely overwhelmed by the drive of their dog. Canty, I'm going to use you for an example, right? You're not going to take it personally, right? Canty's good. So Canty's dog Wiggins is a very drivey, high drive dog. Very, very high drive. Most people, if they had that dog, they would be afraid of that drive. And Canty's really good about it. She just takes everything in stride and just goes about her business. And sometimes she's too good about it because the freight train comes at her when she's trying to do a SERP and we go, abandon mission, Canty. So people who have a dog like that, they may go, oh, this dog's too crazy. He's crazy. He's out of control. He's off his stick. He's nuts. And here's the thing that I ask you. It might not be that the dog is out of control or crazy because, for example, when it looks like Wiggins about to kill Canty because they're trying to, do a blind cross and you go, oh my gosh, this is going to be pretty. I can take Wiggins and I can run him and it looks like poetry. All right? So the difference is my experience. And Canty will get there with Wiggins, and she's very patient, which is the good thing. And she never says, this dog's crazy and he's out of control. So here's what I'm getting to. I'm not trying to make Canty feel bad about herself. Here's what I'm getting to, is it may not be the dog. It may be your experience. So the dog's drive isn't matched for your experience at this time. But here's the thing. Dogs are forgiving and they're very patient and they just love doing stuff with us. So they will wait for you to catch up. Or you can turn it around and say this dog's crazy and out of control and is a nut bar and diminish that drive till he comes down here with you. And he learns to poke-a-doke around a course and to be worried about maybe you're going to get mad at him because he's going to a tunnel and he shouldn't be. So he gradually, every class, he'll get slower and slower and slower until he comes down to your level. All right? I'm hoping that's not what you want. So here's my first piece of advice. Embrace who your dog is. Allow him to be who he is. If he's a very high drive dog and he's got all this joy for the sport, be patient with that. I'm not saying there isn't things that can help you and him communicate better, but what I'm saying is you need to be patient because perfection in an agility dog doesn't come in the package of a 2-year-old dog. As long as every day you're doing one thing to make your relationship, your dog's understanding of handling, your understanding of dog training better than it was the day before, then your dog will patiently wait for you to catch up. If you are patient, what's going to happen is you're not going to diminish that joy. You are going to come together as a team, and it is going to be beautiful. So that my first piece of advice is don't be in a hurry to think you're going to get this high drive dog to be a remote control agility dog overnight. That may not be your journey at this point, all right? So that's point number one. Point number two is if you've got a high drive dog and you're maybe, so like Momentum, holy crappy doodle. I could post a video of, you know, if I look at I don't have my pink journal here. I don't think it's on, it might be on the desk over there, Canty, but it's like this one. It's like that green one, but it's pink. So in my journal, I set my quarterly goals for my dogs. And for Momentum's quarterly goals, one of them for the first quarter of this year was to develop her confidence so that she will have more drive when she's running agility. And so if you watch some old videos of me with Momentum, she wasn't really powering places. So that was one of my goals. Okay, check. But now what I've got is this loon around the ring. Like I really have very little control outside of the ring before we go into the ring. And so here's what I did on the weekend. I got close to the ring and I asked her to sit and she couldn't. So then I just back away and I asked her to sit. And so I'm going to play that game. You don't get to go in there unless you listen to me, because no matter how high you get, you still need to do what I ask when I ask. So that's what you can do with your high drive dog. Where around the ring can they listen to you? And if you've read Shaping Success, Buzzy's first agility class, I had to go out into the parking lot to get him to listen to me. So you just go back and forth with simple behaviors. Sit, down. I just do some tricks with Minty and get closer to the ring. And when I go into the ring, I ask her to sit. And at one of my runs, and I didn't post this one, but I certainly could, the first obstacle was a tunnel. She got into a stand and got laser locked on that tunnel. And I said, sit. And she said, I can't really hear anything right now. The rush of the air through that tunnel is deafening. And so I waited. And then I just interrupted her with, excuse me, can you sit? She said, okay, I can sit. Now, if she hadn't sat, I would have just turned her in a circle and asked for a sit again, right? Here's what happens is behavior consequence. So the consequence of her saying I can't sit was that I interrupted that frame of mind with her and got her to do what I wanted. But what most people do with a high drive dog is they ask for something, the dog says can't, and they say, okay, let's just go. So now you're setting up a relationship for the dog in agility that is a slippery slope to not having any control for that with that high drive dog. All right? All right. So that is the feedback I've got for you for a high drive dog. Allow him to be who he is. He'll be patient and wait until you catch up. Please don't diminish that drive and think you've got to get it all overnight. And ask for simple behaviors. Potentially, you might not. Now, Canty's done a fantastic job with Wiggins. So some of the other litter mates are trialing. She didn't trial. She went in the ring. She trialed. It was a bit of a disaster the first time out, right, Canty? And then she came back home and she did more training. And then she's very selective about when she puts him in the ring. And every time she puts him in the ring, he gets better. Every time. One problem is getting better. So at first he didn't want to stay on his contacts. Contacts are amazing. And then his start line. I'm not staying at the start line. I'm leaving without you. And then now it's weep holes. Like every time out they get better. And that's, if you have the patience with those really high dogs, you will be paid off. But don't think perfection comes in the form of a 2-year-old agility dog. All right? All right. So let's now go. I'm just going to give you this thought so that you don't have to do this right now, and you can do this more than once. To win my next book that I'm going to share with you is called Mind Gym. And I've got notes from the book here. I've got it all marked up inside. I don't know, can you still see this? Sometimes I use a highlighter, but mostly I just underline with a pen. When I'm that's the nice thing about reading it on my iPad, because I can highlight right there on the iPad. So it's got dog ears. This is a well-used book. I really, really like this book. And so I am going to purchase one of these and send it to one of you. And we're gonna name the person who wins the Share book, the Shaping Success book. We'll name that one at the end of this Facebook Live. This book we'll put out and we'll name tonight or tomorrow morning. Okay. How you're going to win this book is you are going to write in the comments one gem, one aha moment, one big takeaway that you got from this Facebook Live. All right? And we're just going to go through, and the one that touches our hearts the most, we're going to knock on your door and say, "You're the winner! Winner, winner, tofu dinner." Okay. I'm not really going to knock on your door. Okay. Timely cues. Running an agility dog, when you watch a team that really understand each other, it looks poetic. It looks like a dance. They absolutely know what each other is expecting. And there's two things that really affect this hugely. And you're not going to like to hear what one of them is. So the first one is experience. The more you understand your speed, your top speed as a handler and your dog's top speed as an agility dog, the more you will be able to get to places. So in the heat of the moment, you want your top speed to be your top speed. But here's what happens. Your top speed at home is often not the same as your top speed at a trial, and here's why. When you get really nervous and you get thinking when you're running agility, the first thing that happens is your feet turn to cement. Almost literally. And so you put your dog in the tunnel and you know you should leave, but your feet feel like lead and you second guess. And that 1 second means you aren't in the position you thought you would be. You're not in the position you could be at home. So a lot of getting to places goes back to your mental game. And that's why you saw that whole bookshelf on mental prep. And that represents, a little bit of what I've learned about the mental side of sport. And I've been blessed to be able to hang out with some of the most amazing achievers in sports. Spending an afternoon with Coach John Wooden, the winningest coach in college basketball. A really good friend of mine who is a professional tennis player, and we talk about mental game all the time. I talked to you the last broadcast about a friend of mine who holds the Guinness World Record and teaches people how to get into a mental state to be able to hold your breath for extended periods of time. And Stig is in the World Book of Records. 22 minutes, the man, underwater. I think it was on 60 Minutes, actually. And interesting sidebar, we got together, I guess it was last year. There was a few of us, and we rented this house in Scottsdale. And they had a pool, and Stig said, okay. And it was cold. I didn't want to get in the pool, but in the pool, and I had these heart monitors on, and he said, all right, how long can you hold your breath? And you can hear the person beside you. So when my friend, I'm not going to say his name. So when he got up, I'm like, okay, I win. I win the first round because I just have to be longer than him. So I think he was like 33 seconds or something like that, and I got to 40 seconds. Holding my breath underwater for 7 seconds. Pretty good, right? Then, this little magic, guess what I got to the next time? Canty, do you know the answer to this? Do you know how long I held my breath the second time? No, that's what Stig did. He's in the world records. After doing it for 40 seconds the first time, I got to 2 minutes and 20 seconds the second time. So cool. Anyway, I digress. Mental, and all that Stig did was gave me a couple little things to do, and it's about relaxation. And that is the key to the getting there is absolutely knowing where you can get to at home and where you can get to in the ring. And that really ties back to your mental game. And if you're not, I'm just going to take this opportunity to mention again the mindset, walking mindset routine that we're giving away. You have to be in our other Facebook group. I'm sure somebody on my team will put the email or the Facebook address for that. Absolutely free. I promise you it's going to be impactful. I'm so excited to hear feedback on this one. So that's part of it. Of course, the timeliness of cues. There's really three ways we cue in agility. Number one is our verbal cues. And depending on what system you're using, this isn't really about handling, this is about dog training. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. Some systems have no verbal cues. That's cool. There's some of the best handlers in the world that run without verbal cues. I'm not saying you have to. I happen to rely on verbal cues. And the timeliness of my verbal cues is that my cues happen long before I need the dog to get that information. So you ideally, I see still, if this was a jump, I still see people running with their dog gets right up to here and then they say jump. You know what? You don't need a cue if you're giving it that late. The dog needs this information back here, at least a stride and a half before, if not earlier. So if you're giving cues right here, don't even bother, right? Some people are giving them over the jump. I still see people giving them when the dog lands. So if you're giving verbal cues, they need to be at least a stride and a half before. That they don't tell the dog what they're doing, they tell the dog the path to take to what they're doing and the path to take after. But if you're using physical cues, the timeliness of the physical cues, it's the same thing. If you want to decel to tell a dog we're turning tight here, you can't just stop when the dog's beside you, right? You think about this. If you want to do a blind cross and your dog's running up behind you and you want a blind cross, when the dog gets beside you, it's too late to blind cross. Something bad is going to happen. Blind crosses have to happen with the dog behind, and the same is true of any physical cue. If you're doing a rear or a front cross, if you want to show decel, the only exception to this, of course, would be a rear cross because the dog has to go by you. All right, but front cross, blind cross, deceleration, a shoulder pull, any of these things, any of these physical cues have to happen when the dog's at least a stride and a half before. And if you can keep your mind around that, your cues will become far more timely. Okay? So, a big part of getting there is your mental game. And I promise you, you get your mental game healthy, then you're going to find your cues become more timely, and you will be able to get there easier than you have ever done before. All right, moving on. You're watching for questions, right? Okay. Remembering the course. Guess what this is about? Mental game. Mental game. Because here's what happens. When you run agility, do you know what you should be thinking about? I'm going to put that out there. I'm going to leave that with you. What should you be thinking about when you're running agility? All right, put your answer in, and I'm going to refresh this so I can read your answers. Put your answer in, and I want you to tell me what you think, and Linda's going to write them into the chat, and so we'll know. What do you think you should be thinking about when you're running agility? I'm going to make this big so I can see what you guys write. All right. And you have to watch LOHs. Okay? So, I'm going to leave that with you because it ties right in to how you remember the course. So anybody give us any comments? Okay, you should think about your dog's path, the sequences, to have fun. Sequences. These are all really good suggestions. Connection. To build a relationship with your job. Okay. Your dog's line. These are all excellent. What obstacles are next? What's my dog doing? All right. All of these are great suggestions. Have any of you ever... If you've ever played a musical instrument, say you've played the guitar, or you're typing on the keyboard, So you're all on a computer now. Maybe you're two-fingering it, but I'm going to pretend you're actually playing it like a piano, like a keyboard, okay? So can you write on that? Because you're shaking this. Thank you. So if you're typing at a computer or you're playing a guitar, when you first start, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about, okay, G, my finger here, this finger comes up here, okay, and A is that, all right? And when you're typing, you're thinking, the A, okay, where's the A, G? You're thinking about that. Okay, fast forward 10 years, when you've played the guitar 10 years, when you've been typing on a computer 10 years, what are you thinking about? Any ideas? Nothing. You allow your mind to go blank, and you just are in the moment observing what's going on. And that's exactly what you should be thinking about when you're running agility. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because if you are in your present mind, you are going to have to take that information, consciously think what that information means. My dog is looking at the tunnel. What can I do? I can change my arm to get my dog away from the tunnel. I can call my dog's name to get his attention, or I can clap. Your dog's gone through the tunnel 4 times while you're getting that feedback back and forth from the neurons. But if your brain is blank, you're going to do what your history experientially has told you to do. Boom. Hey, that is why you shouldn't be trying to think of anything when you're running agility, which is why you need to be able to remember the course. Remember the course is your mental game. So here, I'm just going to give you a little tip on how I like to remember courses, because when I first started, I had a terrible time, especially jumpers. Jumpers was my nemesis, because with a standard course, there was always, a dog walk and A-frame seesaw and weave pulls. In jumpers in Canada, when I first started at agility, there weren't even weave pulls. So there were tunnels and jumps. And God bless those judges who have you take one tunnel or one jump 4 times, but take a different obstacle after it, right? It would be like I was making a benevolent donation to some big agility fund, because I knew I was always going to be eliminated on every jumper's run. All right? That dreaded 4th pass through, it would be like, oh, screw it, we're going home. Right? So here's what worked for me, is I always backchain the courses. And I look for things that make sense. So if I look at, it's a 20 course obstacle, so I'll look at the last 4 or 5, and anywhere from 3 to 6 or 7, what gives me flow? Oh, I can see that is this, it's a tunnel and a jump and then a weave pulls and then a jump. So I would just memorize those last 4 or 5 in a way that is a sequence, a separate sequence that makes sense. It's not memorizing jump, jump, tunnel, it's memorizing a sequence with flow. And I would do that, and then I would go back to the next chunk, the next 3 to 7 obstacles. And I would get that memorized as a sequence, and then I would add it to my last sequence, and then I would get that flowing from one sequence to the next sequence. It's just one sequence to the next sequence. And then I would go back, and every course is divided for me into maybe 3 or 4 sequences that way. And by memorizing it that way, I'm always repeating what part first. I'm repeating the last sequence far more often than any other part of the course. And guess what? When you're running and you're a little bit nervous because you've got a clean run, you're getting a little anxious, what part of the course would you like to know the best? The obstacles behind you or the ones you haven't done yet? So doing it this way, you rehearse running that last sequence far, far, far more than you ever do the first few obstacles in your sequence. And guess what? As you're walking to the line, the first few obstacles you can see. If you never get that part in your back chain, because maybe you're one of the first dogs up after your walkthrough and you don't have time to put it all together, it doesn't matter. You can see them when you get to the line. All right? So that is what made me move from being a charitable donation to somebody who stands on podiums is by back chaining in sequence and seeing it as a picture and putting those pictures all together. Okay? All right. Recovery. So Canty says, what about if it goes wrong? What about if, maybe you're on it could go wrong in a number of different ways. Number one, it could be your dog knocks a bar and you're disappointed, or you see a judge's hand go up, or you hear the crowd go, oh, and you don't really know what went wrong. You need to practice recovery. And I'll tell you what, when Greg Louganis, Olympic gold medal diver, he did agility a long time. He's going to come back to agility. I had lunch, and Greg's a good friend of mine. I had lunch with Greg and his coach, Ron O'Brien, one time. And I said to Ron, what made Greg so much better than all the other divers you coached? Because Ron coached a lot of great divers. And here's what he said. He said, for 99.9% of the divers in the world, if they get up on a platform, which it's scary and it could kill you, in practice, they get up and maybe they're doing a handstand or they're in the middle of running and a big gust of wind comes, those divers get down and start again. And Greg carries on and learns how to recover in midair. So every scenario possible he's faced in practice because he's had to learn how to counterbalance. When maybe he hit the platform, he jumped up and he was not quite on balance, but he dove anyway. So when you're practicing agility and your dog goes, doesn't do exactly what you want them to do, recover. Yes, sometimes, if your dog goes wide and you cue a tight turn, you need to stop and start again. But don't let that be your norm that you always do, because otherwise you're never going to be able to recover on the fly when you get to a trial because you've never practiced that. Okay? So recovery is a big part of getting it all together. All right. Start lines. Start lines. I love start lines. Yes. Oh, yeah, sure. Question. So Canty said, what do we do to practice recovery? So number one, just rehearse fixing things on the fly when you're training, right? Number two is if you've done this part properly, remembering the course, and you've back chained it, it now isn't something that you have to think about. It's something that your brain just allows to roll out. So that when you have to change, get your arm changed. For example, on the last run of the day yesterday, I was so exhausted physically. My hamstrings were so tight and sore. I'd been warming up, but it was all out running, and I had 12 runs between the two dogs, and it was just crazy. And the last run was a novice agility course, and it was flat out running. And I got Minty through the hard parts. There was just 3 or 4 obstacles, and I wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I didn't think about what was next. All I thought about was getting my dog to come out of the tunnel and turn towards me, and then I knew the wrong obstacle was next, and then it wasn't pretty, but it was recovery. And I was able to do that because I didn't have to think about what obstacle was next when I wasn't where I wanted to be, because my brain, it had transferred from a conscious thought process to an unconscious thought process. My brain knew exactly where the end of the course was. All my job had to do was recover over that one jump and finish the course. Okay? All right. Start lines. It's amazing how many people with their first agility dog have had a really weak start line. And they get their next agility dog, and they also have a very weak start line. And then they get their third agility dog. You see where I'm going here? There's patterns of behavior. There's a number of things that contribute, but there's also a number of things that contribute to why I maybe need to knock on wood, but my first agility dog stepped in the ring in 1988. So it will be 30 years next year that I've been doing agility. And I've had one dog break a start line less than 5 times. And the rest of my time, my dogs have just waited. And it's not that I didn't have high drive dogs, people. I've always had high drive dogs. That is my habit, is to have dogs with great start lines. And you're probably not going to like to hear what I believe contributes to it. So here's the thing. I have never been a super gifted runner in the sport of agility. In the last year, I've put a lot of focus and attention into getting to be a better runner. And I'll be 56 in a few months, and I'm able to run faster and turn quicker than I have ever done in my entire life. And why is that? Because I've been working with a highly skilled professional athlete whose mother was on the Canadian national sprint team. He's got a pedigree of understanding not just how to run fast, but how to teach people how to run fast. And together with him, I've put in more than 50 hours of training over the last 4 months. So 50 hours, more than 10 hours a month. That was probably more than that. Probably more like 12 or 15 hours a month, because together we worked for about an hour and a half a day, 3 times a week. We never missed in 4 months. And then I would do things on my own. And that's how I became a faster runner. All right, what's that got to do with start lines? My dogs assume control positions and hear their release word at least 60 times a week. At least. So that's 200 or more times a month. That's, 2,400 or more times a year. Outside of agility. So why do my dogs have great start lines? It starts with crate games, and then it's just, here's what I want. I want my dog training to be an interactive game that's fun for my dogs that we rehearse throughout the day. So when we go through a door, it's not like I'm sticking needles in my dog's eye. Oh, you gotta sit. Because if my dogs get to a point, and like right now, Swagger's in a poopy phase. Who knows why? He used to be great, had a great sit at the door. And now so we'll just go back and tune that up with the way that he loves it. So that these are games they love to do. So if the dog gets used to all good things in life come first from a control position. We go hiking. They know when we're going hiking. They know the boots that I put on. They get excited. You want to go hiking? Well, guess what? We're all got to do a nice sit, and then we're going hiking. You want to go swimming? Guess what? There's always going to be a control position and a release from that control position, and it's always going to be a game within a game. So that is my number one tip for getting a dog that understands, I just wait till you release me. All right, but what about, how do you contribute? And this is what happens, is people contribute. And the number one way people contribute to their dog's start line woes is they're not present for what's happening. So they see a dog leaving before the cue and going over the first jump. I saw 6 months earlier a dog whose weight went from here to here, whose hocks went from flat on the ground to tipped up in the back. These little nuances created a picture for me that I can predict when they are not going to have a start line in competition anymore. And I'm rarely wrong about it. You need to be present for what your dog is doing, because your release, and this is a biggie, the words you use to release your dog from the start line are giving your dog the biggest reward that they can get at that moment. There is nothing they want more. If you've trained your dog and they're a phenomenal agility dog, they are waiting at the start line, you can come around and give them a cookie. They're going to spit it out. I don't want that cookie. I want to run agility. So when you give them permission to run agility, that is the biggest bonbon they could ever get. And if that permission comes from their prompting rather than yours, then they're learning the biggest bonbon I can ever get comes when I decide to take it. All right? So we got to reel that all back in, get a better start line by one, looking for opportunities to create games of control around the house that become a part of your everyday life. And I really strongly suggest it starts with crate games, goes to bed games, around when we're doing agility classes. We don't have dogs tied up anywhere. They're always showing self-control on a chair, in a dog bed, in their crate, and then they get a release to play a game. And then the number 2 part of your start line brilliance comes from your ability to be present for what's happening. Videotape. If I hadn't videotaped my runs this weekend, I wouldn't have seen that Minty's shoulders are coming down and she is leaning a bit. And if I don't do anything about that, my start line will be problematic. All right? So be present, build fun into everyday life, and then you're going to have your start line back. Again, I'm not giving you entire solutions. I've written a whole book on start lines. I've got, entire programs, video programs on start lines. I'm giving you solid information to lead you to improving what you've got now, so tomorrow it will be better. Do you have a note for me there? Do you use the same release word in agility as you do in daily life? The release word doesn't really matter, guys. It's the action of you're holding position and then you go. So in agility, I generally use the name of the obstacle that they're looking at as their release word. I used to use the same word in everyday life, but I really don't feel it's necessary. What's necessary is you, number 1, stopping, acknowledging your dog, what they're doing, and then it being a conscious thought that you're releasing. Here's what normally happens. Somebody says, I know my start line is a little edgy. My dog might not stay long. So they get out as fast as they can and they go break and they release the dog as soon as they can. But what is your dog thinking, or what is your dog in the act of when they hear the release word? They're in the act of releasing anyway. You've got to adopt a mindset, and this is a big part of the biggest part of success in my agility career. The reason why I've been on the podium more than 50 times at national and world championships events, is because I don't give a crap. And people say, oh, you do all this winning because you don't give a crap now because you've won so much. No, I've never given a crap. What I've always been about is the dog training. And so if my dog is going to blow a start line, I'm not, if I was at the World Championships representing my country, I'd probably go. If I'm at any other kind of trial, I wouldn't go because it's not that important to me. I don't care. All right? But I really want to caution you. What I see a lot of is people using punishment to solve these problems. So the dog breaks the start line, they take them out. The problem, it can't be solved with punishment. It's got to be solved with reinforcement. So I wouldn't put the dog in that position where there's a chance for them breaking unless I'd be willing to bet you $1,000 they wouldn't. Yes, Canty?
So
I'm going to get a drink while you...
What about freezing at the start line? My girl loves once she gets going, but she can freeze at the start line.
So the question is, what about the dogs that freeze at the start line? And I addressed that because Minty did that this weekend. When we started, the first obstacle was a tunnel, and she didn't want to sit. She just got into this vapor lock. So here's the thing. You want to, and I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow. So I have a workshop tomorrow. We're going to post the time later this afternoon. I believe, I can't remember. I'm not going to say it. So I'm going to post the time. It's a complete workshop. It's about dog training and agility. And I will be addressing what happens when. But as I said, I did with momentum, is I just broke up that behavior. But it's not, your problems aren't solved in the agility ring. Your problems are solved outside of the agility ring. Your problems are solved in your training school. Your problems are solved in your own home. Do you see it keeps going back and back and back? And these are just building layers of fluency for your dog so that it isn't a conscious thought for them, just like being good on handling a remembering course isn't a conscious thought for you. Okay? Do you have any other questions that are related to our 4? And if you go into our Facebook group and you add if you have something that isn't on that list, that's where I'm going to. We have this running list of dog training challenges. What are your biggest dog training challenges in agility? And if you go to the Facebook group and you'll see that list, I believe it's a pinned post, and either vote on things that hit you in your heart, or if you don't see yours there, then add yours to the bottom. Because it's my opinion that not enough attention is given to dog training and agility. Far more people are one to spend, most people find the joy in running the dog. They don't find the joy in training the dog. But if you go about it right, one can be just as much fun or more fun than the other. So that's why I thought we're going to really focus on some details of dog training. All right. So I'm going to remind you, if you share this broadcast right now, you have the chance of being put in the draw. Remember, you got to share it with the hashtag dog training for agility, and we're going to announce a winner. We're going to pick one. What time is it, Canty? Do you know?
It's 10 to 5.
Okay, we're going to announce a winner in the next 3 minutes because we're going to wrap up. Oh, we have another question? Okay.
Yeah. What about you give the release, but the dog doesn't move?
Okay. That's a different question. I misunderstood. So this was probably the same woman who the dog freezes. Okay. I've had that situation, actually. My very first agility dog, Shelby. And one of the greatest lessons I learned from Shelby did agility for what she got from it, not because she was trained to love doing it. So she did agility purely to get her rock, which was her number one reward. So at the end of a 3-day weekend, if I let out 3 or 4 obstacles and I would go to release her, she'd go, no, not leaving. So dogs who don't release at the start line, I'm guessing, if they're anything like Shelby, they were much faster obstacles 16 through 20 than they were obstacles 1 through 9. And if you have a dog who starts off slow but starts going faster, then it's the dog training of agility that's flawed. That my guess is you're running where the dog can see the rewards, and you need to hide rewards and let them be surprises in every training session. No more letting the dog know you have their favorite squeaky or their favorite ball or the big meatball. Okay?
How do you recover the drive of the dog?
That was yesterday. So we're looking at drive in your dog. Go back to Friday's Facebook Live, and that's where we talked about getting more speed from your dog. Okay, so. All right, so my team, have they looked at the shares, and have we got a winner tofu dinner on who's going to win the shaping success? Okay, so I think I think LOH is on. If you haven't looked at my runs from yesterday, I did this really cool comparison of swagger and momentum, and I changed up my handling between the two, and I did that purposefully because I knew going the way of swagger would be faster, but I wanted to know how much faster. And here's a little tidbit for you. I'm just going to write the sequence here because I thought it was interesting. So I don't know exactly if so the dog was coming from this direction out of the weave poles. So there are weave poles. Can you see all that on the camera, Canty? Yep. And I might not have it exactly right. So I ran up here and turned this way with momentum. And with swagger, oh, I got another marker, look at this. With swagger, I did this. So my concern was with the dogs going this way is that they would go too close to that tunnel and then they'd have a longer distance. This was obviously the longer way. And if you timed the dog from start of the time here and you ended the time here, you would say, wow, that is 1 full second difference. I think it was like 7/10. It was very close to 1 second. That swagger was 1 second faster than momentum. But here's the thing. Because Swagger was entering the tunnel like this, he had to do a turn back and then pick up speed where momentum could accelerate through there. So if you stop the time here, there was actually only 0.2 seconds difference between the two dogs. Interesting stuff. I love looking at the analytics. Easy for you to say. Thank you, of dog training. Okay, we have a winner tofu dinner. Cheryl Overby. We randomly selected you, and you will win Shaping Success. So somebody will contact you, or you, if you are out there still listening, contact us at customerhappiness@clickerdogs.com and let us know where to send your Shaping Success. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Tomorrow, the workshop is all about dog training. It's all about why things fail when you get to the ring. It's how to inoculate your dog training so that it doesn't fail when you get to the ring, and how to change what you've got to make it stronger. So that's the focus of tomorrow's workshop. It won't be on this page. I'm doing it for the group who's put up their hand and say, I'm interested in learning more about the dog training for agility. And that is all in the Facebook group. And it's called Susan Garrett's Free Dog Training for Agility Workshop. I'm sure Linda will put a link in the comment section. All right, so that will be tomorrow. We'll post a time shortly, and it's a longer workshop. It's not just on these topics. It's not on random topics. It's really focused on creating a plan. I will have a template for you to download. It will be in the group. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So thanks to Canty. Woo woo! Thanks to LOH. Woo woo! And the rest of the SAS team. See you guys tomorrow.